In this lesson, I'm going to share with you some prerequisite knowledge on musical science and how it correlates to Western music theory. This is an ongoing series that I'll be doing, and musical science is a rather deep subject and quite foreign to most musicians, so it's best broken down into many subsequent lessons. Come join my Patreon, High Castle Conservatory, and help support this channel in the most meaningful way possible and learn more stuff than even on here. You can watch my video and introductory overview of the harmonic series to get a better idea of what we're talking about here with musical science and the harmonic series and these very foreign terms to a lot of musicians, but they're really is the science of music, which is actually missing from music education. So that's kind of what we're getting at here, is how do we reconcile the missing science from music. In this lesson, I specifically want to help you understand what 12-tone equal temperament is, which is the tuning system we use in Western music, and what the unit of measurement called cents is, C-E-N-T-S, like 100, century, probably Latin, I'm guessing. So 12-tone equal temperament, very briefly, is the system we use where we take an octave, and before I even say anything else, let me have you direct your attention to the fact that an octave, where you come back to the same note after going 12 notes or going around the whole circle, is actually stating a law of music. We never learned that in music class, but every proportion in music is possible because there is the octave. Everything is in relationship to that first note and then where the note starts over. So an octave is the law. So what we do with our 12-tone equal temperament tuning system is we simply divide the octave into 12 equal spaces. Sorry, it's too close to the mic there. And this has some good parts and some bad parts. The good parts is that every key sounds the same. So any amount of out of tune we are with this tuning system, it'll be the same in every single key. And what's actually happened in the collective Western ears, we've gotten used to straight up out of tune. Real tuning comes from ratios, though, and I can't get into all that in this lesson. It's something we're working towards in the harmonic series. So just understand that this system we have, 12-tone equal temperament, where we divide the octave into 12 equal spaces, and they say there's 100 cents between each note. So from here to here, we went down 100 cents. From here to here, we went down 100 cents. From here to here, we went down 100 cents. So on and so forth. It's somewhat arbitrary in a way. And how much is a cent? How much can the ear hear? And we'll talk about that stuff. Is what is the average ear hear? What's a better ear hear? If there's 100 cents between two notes, you know that, if I go 2 cents below, it's probably not going to be anything that anybody hears. So cents are, how far we are away from each other, whereas the 12-tone equal temperament system is the actual system where we just say we're going to divide evenly. And the problem is that the harmonic series, or math, or ratios, how you divide a string, which is really the laws of music, all come from that. It's called the harmonic series, and you'll see that video I mentioned that I had the introductory overview of the harmonic series. The harmonic series is what tells us what is in tune and what's not in tune. So some notes are pretty close in the 12-tone equal tempered system. What they call the perfect fifth is very close. Major thirds, not quite super close. The dominant seventh is way off. There's a lot of close notes, and I have charts that I could show you. If you look at this right here, you'll see which intervals are good, very good, close, very close, whatever. I have a bunch of names for them. Check them out here. So our system is convenient because you can tune an instrument and play in any key like a piano or a guitar, whereas if we had to tune to the harmonic series, you would be able to tune to just one key, and there's certain chords you would not be able to play because they would be way out of tune. So this keyboard here is in equal temperament, and this one here, my good old trusty Kurzweil, is tuned to ratios, and you can see some notes very close, but like it's not flat this one is, which is the real note, the seventh harmonic. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I just want you to understand that our system divides an octave equally in 12, and that has some advantages, but also some disadvantages, that some important notes are pretty out of tune. A sense might seem kind of arbitrary, but the one good thing about going by hundreds is that if I tell you a note is 12 cents out of tune, since it's out of 100, guess what? It's a percentage. So you're like, how out of tune is 12 cents? And then I go 12% out of tune. I'm like, I can kind of think about that. Oh, that's 12% out of tune, but 12 cents, I have no idea how much that is. But we'll talk about coming up here how much humans can hear. Most musicians who learn music theory are taught arbitrary names and numbers of Western music theory, where we basically take the major scale and name intervals according to the notes of the position they have in that major scale. So if we're in C, we have this is called the perfect fifth because the C major scale, 3, 4, 5. So that's cool. The major scale is really important, but the problem is we've derived our names from the major scale as if this was a cause, or this was the ultimate cause. And unfortunately, the major scale is not the cause of musical principles. The cause of musical principles is the harmonic series, and we'll go over what that is, but it's inside of every musical note that's ever played on any real instrument, and it can't be taken away by any human opinion. It's in every single note. Sorry, I'm getting all hot here. I love the harmonic series. And like musicians know very, very little about it. It's almost astounding. And it's literally the thing that furnishes all principles of rhythm, all principles of harmony, everything to do with that all comes from this harmonic series, which is just divisions of a string. The problem with the fact that we've used the major scale to name all our intervals, a major second, major third, is we've basically called the major scale a cause. And in science, when you invert cause and effect or mistake one for the other, that's one of the biggest errors you can make. So the major scale is absolutely not a cause, but it's named like it is. So why is that a problem? Well, the harmonic series, the first harmonic is 1. If we're in C, it's 1. The second harmonic is the octave, so that's 2, not 8. The third harmonic is what they call the perfect fifth. You see, they don't correspond. Some of them do a couple spots, but we've called the major scale a cause or a principle, when in fact it's just an effect of the harmonic series. So just real briefly, let me tell you what the harmonic series is. And I have this really bloated, pompous, it's not pompous, but it's just so much information in this definition. Then I'm going to break down what it means because there's really a lot of info packed into this. The musical harmonic series is an ineffaceable, naturally occurring phenomenon manifesting as a sequence of incrementally ascending sine wave overtones that rest on immovable principles which nothing can alter, and resonate covertly and simultaneously within any note produced on an acoustic, pitch-producing instrument, furnishing musicians with the primary elements of their craft: harmony, rhythm, and timbre, and expressed mathematically as whole number ratios from 1 to infinity. The first harmonic would be 1 over 1, then 2 over 1, 3 over 1, 4 over 1 is the fourth harmonic, and so forth, demonstrating considerable tuning discrepancies from the popular 12-tone equal temperament tuning system, which is widely used today, with each subsequent harmonic diminishing in volume and the multitude of which the average ear detects only one pitch. Wow. Okay, I know that is like really, really a bloated definition, so forgive me. I knew it was bloated. Let me break it down one point at a time. The first harmonic, when you just play a note, what is the first harmonic? When you strike a note, that's the first harmonic of that harmonic series. And out of it comes this series of notes into infinity that sort of defines the characteristic of this instrument. The first harmonic is represented by the ratio 1 over 1. And like I said, the ear only hears a single pitch, even though there's all these harmonics ringing out of it. Most ears do not hear any of the harmonics. They just more associate it with the sound of the instrument. So next, after the first harmonic, each subsequent ascending harmonic that resonates above it is just a single sine wave overtone. In other words, they don't also put off a harmonic series of their own. All acoustic instruments that exhibit a discernible pitch, in other words, you could have a noise instrument and you can't sing a pitch, but if it's a note, any instrument that has a discernible pitch also transmits the harmonic series. It's only possible to create instruments without a harmonic series on a synthesizer artificially. Percussive instruments with no perceivable pitch tones and also noise-type instruments such as shakers have no organized harmonic series, but rather have seemingly random harmonics that are not in the order of the harmonic series, the 1/1, 2/1. So they have all these random harmonics, so it sounds more like than ooh, doesn't exhibit a note. It's weird to think what the difference is between a noise sound and a pitch sound, but really that's what it is. It's the presence of the harmonic series tells us it's a musical note and it's a pitch we can hum if we're not tone deaf. I'm sometimes tone deaf. I have to kind of get into it before I sing. The harmonic series is ineffaceable because it is automatically ringing inside of any note played on an acoustic pitch-producing instrument. No act of human will or human opinion can change the fact that a note contains a discernible pitch due to the presence of the harmonic series. In nature, there is no hummable pitch that can be produced without the harmonic series. So it's ineffaceable. The harmonic series furnishes musicians with harmony and therefore melody because the ratios are actual harmonies. The 1 is the bass note, so if I say 3/1, it's the third harmonic playing over the first harmonic, which in this case is a perfect fifth. So the harmonic series gives us all of our harmonies and perfectly tuned compared to our tuning system, which is a bit flawed in certain spots. It also gives us the principle of rhythm because every possible harmony is just an expression of some specific rhythm, 3/1, 5/1, 7/1, 4/3, whatever it is. We don't realize it is when people play a harmony, that's just a rhythm. When I play this is 3 against 2. That's why that sounds so good. It's a power chord. But our ear perceives harmonies as just, nice or dissonant or whatever the mood is, but we don't actually hear the beating rhythm. They're beating at different rhythms, which is why they're a different pitch in the first place. So that's really interesting to think that rhythm and melody both come out of the harmonic series from these ratios. Now, the harmonic series gives us one more thing that is absolutely unique to music, and that is timbre. What is timbre? That's the unique sound characteristic of any particular instrument. Each instrument's unique tonal quality is largely shaped by which harmonics are more or less prominent amplitude-wise in that instrument's harmonic series. So in other words, every instrument's different. Look, there's a trumpet. It looks like this, and you see which harmonics are more present. Then here's a flute. Oh, it has totally different set. Here's a guitar. And that's why our ear goes, oh, that's a different sound. It knows that it's a guitar, but there's also like an attack, which is a noisy thing on each of those instruments. It might be blowing on a flute or the pick of a guitar. So you get this like noise and then the harmonic series. But largely what's making the timbre of any particular instrument is which harmonics are higher or lower in that particular instrument. And every instrument is different, even instruments among themselves. No two guitars will have, and you could put this stuff on an oscilloscope and see which harmonics are sticking out, but it's really, really a deep dive you can do here that never really ends. The tuning of the harmonic series deviates in varying degrees, depending on which harmonic we're talking about, from the intervals in our widely used but flawed 12-tone equal temperament tuning system. 12-tone equal temperament, for better or worse, simply divides the octave into 12 equally spaced intervals and sacrifices the in-tuneness for the convenience of easily playing in many different keys on fixed-pitch instrument like piano and guitar, and preserves the same degrees of out-of-tuneness in each key, which helps our ears acclimate to those imperfections. In fact, we hear a major chord, we expect it instead of... Music that aims to correct the tuning deficiencies of 12-tone equal temperament and align to the whole number ratios of the harmonic series is often called just intonation and determines tuning solely based on whole number ratios. To demonstrate this visually, when you strike a single note on a string instrument, it is represented by the number 1 on the following chart, which is the entire string ringing as a whole. The series that follows is a division of the whole. You'll see halfway through, which is that octave up you get on any stringed instrument, which is 2/1. Then 3/1 goes in either direction because we're dividing the string. You can do it on either side of it. 4/1 is another double of the octave, 1, 2, 4. 5/1, 6/1, 7/1, so on and so forth. Those harmonics are all ringing, to lesser degrees as it gets higher, but out of a string, and that's what gives it its sound. It's really a weird fact, and I think more musicians need to know about it. Implied in the harmonic series is the universal principle of resonance and vibration. All musical sounds are made of vibrations of a certain speed. All harmony can be expressed as a mathematical ratio of a fundamental tone, which is like our 1/1, our first harmonic. You call that the principal, the fundamental, the bass note, the key center, whatever you want to call it. Imagine a pebble tossed into a lake, a calm morning lake. The plop of the pebble represents the fundamental 1/1, and the circular ripples that would, undulate off into the expanse of the water represent the countless resonating overtones. The harmonic series teaches us that the principles of music and harmony arise from the very nature of mechanical vibration. Really good book, Harmonies of Heaven and Earth by Jocelyn Godwin. He writes, in the early modern era, it was not widely known that the harmonic series corresponds to the vibrations into which any musically resonant body tends to fall. But the sequence of intervals was familiar as the series of integral divisions of the string, 1/1, 2/1, 3/1, 4/1, 5/1, so on and so forth. Moreover, it was readily audible as the notes of the natural trumpet, the valveless instrument which Bach and Handel wrote for. So like I said, cents are a way to tell us on a synthesizer, how far something is away. So we said there's 1,200 cents in an octave, and we have 12 notes, so 1,200 divided by 12 is 100 cents per. So between here and here is 100 cents. In other words, there's an infinite number of notes between these two notes. So you could go halfway between them and you would get a microtone. I could do that on this keyboard over here. What if I go halfway instead of... So I tune this down, and now listen to this note. Hear how close that one is? Instead of... Yeah, so there is a whole... Musicians understand between even what we call a half step or a semitone, there's a whole world of notes of exotic qualities that actually many are supported by the harmonic series. So we should start learning them. In other countries, they use these notes in Arabic music, Indonesian music, African music. All over the world, there are tuning systems that are not 12-tone equal temperament. But in our pop and jazz and rock, where we like to be able to change keys, we've really taken advantage of the conveniences of it. There are good and bad parts of it. So how much can the human ear hear? So if I told you this was 50 cents lower than it's supposed to be, I definitely hear that's a dissonance, that they're a different note. So I had to do a little research, and there was actually a study that aimed to see how many cents can average Joe hear, the average ear. How many cents does it take before they even know there's a different note? Let me show you what 1 cent sounds like. You won't hear a difference. So here we have this C, and now I made this note also the same as this, but 1 cent different. There's nothing discernible. Now let me keep changing that. Let me try 4 cents. Here's 4 cents. It's still really close. Like a singer is not that in tune. A violinist is doing a bunch of vibrato, so still really close. How about let's try like 7 cents. Here. Starting to hear it a little bit. Do you hear that? So this is the one that's 7 cents flatter. It's still not that bad. If 2 singers came in on that, like when people double track their vocals, there is stuff that out of tune all the time, and it's left, and it's on all the classic records we hear before there was auto-tune. So 7 is still not that bad. I bet the average ear too, my ear might be slightly above average. I think your average non-musician ear would not be able to tell those are 2 different notes. You do hear that slight bend. Let's go up to 12. There we go. There we go. You're starting to be able to hear it come apart. So if I were to just scroll through this, you'll hear how out of tune it becomes. So anyway, I'm just showing you how much a cent actually sounds like. There was a study done on this, and what they concluded was that at about 12 cents, right where we were there, is about where the average ear can start telling something's out of tune or it's 2 unique notes. So, there's no hard rule about it. The worse the ear, they might tolerate 15 or 20 cents but it starts to get pretty wonky after 12 cents as being out of tune. I can show you. They did a study, it was called Effects of Tone Quality Changes on Intonation and Tone Quality Ratings of High School and College Instrumentalists, by John M. Geringer. This is like an official study, and what they concluded was right at about 12 cents is where your average ears could tell there was even a different note at all. And if you're a little better ear, you're a musician, you might be able to hear within 7 or even less than that. And part of music, as a lot of you might know, is we're out of tune, and nothing's perfect. There is no perfect, and people are vibratoing to compensate. Some people think they're doing vibrato just for stylistic reasons, and some of them are not willing to admit it's also because they don't exactly know where the tuning is, and that's normal. We're all on these different instruments, and have you ever tried to play in tune on a violin? It's one of the hardest things ever. So you use a lot of vibrato on certain instruments, and vibrato sounds great in certain instances, but I do think it covers up some of these tuning problems, which a lot of these musicians don't even know about. So of course you're just going to do more vibrato. I do like vibrato, but just cautiously. So anyway, this study said 12 cents, and that's a good guideline for me. It's like I said, it's not a hard rule, but about 12 cents is where I'm like. So really all I wanted to accomplish in this lesson was teach you that 12-tone equal temperament is our system. It divides an octave equally in 12, has pros and cons. It's equally out of tune, can be played on any instrument, but the cons are we don't hear the real tuning notes. And I'll go into other lessons which notes are more or less out of tune according to this sort of 12-cent arbitrary, basic general standard we have for in-tuneness or out-of-tuneness. And we'll go over all that in other lessons. But now we understand what cents are. There's 100 cents between each semitone, and once you get more than 12 cents, it starts sounding out of tune. But if it's less than 12 cents, it's starting to sound closer and closer in tune, all the way to 0, which is obviously perfectly in tune. There are many other notes between the notes of 12-tone equal temperament that we don't have access to, and they do use in other countries that are from the harmonic series, even though they probably don't think of it like that. But there's many other what they call microtonal divisions, but we'll go into all of that as well. So when you look at this chart here, I want you to understand what you're looking at. Here we have a C, which would be like the 1 or the fundamental or the base or the root of a key or a chord. And then you have 2, which is the same notes. You have the notes up here chromatically, C, C sharp, D, D sharp. And we see going from 1 to 2 is creating an octave. So that is literally the law of octave. The same function that the numbers 1 and 2 have in mathematics, that they create the primary proportions of all of mathematics, is the same thing in music. Going from 1 to 2 creates basically a circle, and it goes from the 1 up to an octave with nothing in between it. Everything else is somewhere in that octave, and it falls sometimes close and sometimes not so close to equal temperament. So what are we looking at here? See the chromatic notes of the piano, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. It just goes straight up. So 1 to 2, there's the octave. Everything else falls between. Now, listen here. This dotted line represents 12-tone equal temperament, an exact equal division. You might not see it here, but it actually says on this chart how much the harmonic that has this number is off from 12-tone equal temperament. The 9th harmonic here is 4 cents sharper than 12-tone equal temperament. The 5th harmonic here is 14 cents flatter than 12-tone equal temperament. So this dotted line represents exactly a division of 12 of the octave, or exactly the notes of 12-tone equal temperament. The black line represents the space exactly in between two notes of equal temperament, or what we call the quarter tone. It's a little thicker than it should be in this chart, but we'll fix that. But anyway, so this dotted line is exactly the notes of 12-tone equal temperament. The black line is the quarter toner halfway in between two notes of equal temperament. And then it says, if you had the full chart, exactly the sense deviation that each harmonic has compared to equal temperament. So you can see that the 1 and 2 is an octave. Now 3 is what they call the perfect fifth. So there's 1, there's 2, and then 3 is the perfect fifth, and it's only 2 cents sharp in the harmonic compared to equal temperament. 2 cents is fantastic. We will take that any day of the week. Remember I told you 12 cents is kind of the outer limit of where it starts to get out of tune? The reason that 12-tone equal temperament works so well, I'll just tell you something, it's because the most important intervals, the octave is obviously perfectly in tune. There's no There's no way around that. When you double something, it's an octave. If I go up to 4, it's an octave. If I go up to 8, it's an octave of that. Here's 1, 2, 4, 8. Any double or half is the same note. And then the third harmonic is what they call the perfect fifth, because in the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's actually the third harmonic, and we really should be thinking 3 when we play that power chord. But it's only 2 cents off, and I will tell you something, that is the reason that 12-tone equal temperament works, is because that most important interval outside of the octave is really close to in tune. Now, the next most important interval is not 4, because 4 is just a double of 1, 2, 4. It's 5 is the next unique note, and that creates the major third. See here, and you probably can't tell, but it's 14 cents flat. And remember we said 12 is the outer limit? So this major third, that's tuned correctly. On this piano here, it's sharp. On this one here, listen to this note. It's just 14 cents sharper. So it's just barely enough, because remember I said 12 cents is the limit, to be kind of out of tune. And it's especially important because if you know what a major third is, it's the note of beauty. It's the major chord, so it matters if it's out of tune. It's just a little sharp. Every major chord we have in Western music, the note of beauty is a little sharp. So if you don't see the problem there, that the pretty note is a little sharp, it's 14 cents sharp. It's too much. Singers will naturally correct this. So if I hit this even out of tune and I say sing an E, we tune to this. Not this. Such a powerful internal resonance those ratios are that you literally will defy an out-of-tune note that's playing right in your face because there's a link, that 5 over 4. And now if you get to the 7th harmonic, which is usually the dominant 7th note, in equal temperament it's there, but it is 31 cents flat in the harmonic series. So remember I said 12 is starting to get too much? Think about how much 31 cents is off. It's almost a quarter tone. It's that far. So dominant 7 is like our chord of tension, and it makes music keep moving. But in the harmonic series, that 7th is a secret note, a note that does not exist in Western music in any way, shape, or form unless a guitar bends to it accidentally or a singer accidentally hits it. So there's the equal tempered dominant 7. Listen to this. This note's 31 cents flatter than this one. So that's what we hear in Western music, but here's the real one with the real major third. That is a wild note, and it's one we're not... If it sounds weird to you, it's because you're not used to it. So anyway, there are lots of exotic notes and quarter tones and things like that inside of this chart that you can see and you can play inside with just intonation, but it's hard to make some of those notes. You can play them on fretless instruments and vocals, but fixed pitch instruments like guitar, you would have to bend, or if it's a piano or keyboard, you'd have to retune a synthesizer. A popular note is 35 in Arabic music, which is a quarter tone that's almost right between a C sharp and a D. So if I reprogram the synthesizer over here, we get this note. That one is 45 cents flatter than D. And they use that in a lot of different countries. So there are some real exotic notes that some of them may sound strange to you, but you just have to go with them. So let's just do a quick recap here. If a note is out of tune by less than 12 cents, then it is reasonably in tune. If it's less than 7 cents, it's getting pretty close to in tune. And if it's less than 3 cents, it is real close to in tune. But once you hit that about 12 cents, 13, 14, it's starting to get too out of tune. If a note is more than 12 cents, it is past that acceptable limit of deviation. If a note is 50 cents out of tune, it resides exactly halfway between two notes of 12-tone equal temperament, and we call that a quarter tone. For example, that's a quarter tone below D. Here's C, that note. And it's used a lot in Arabic music as well as other musics. If a note is said to be more than 50 cents sharp, then it actually belongs to the domain of the next semitone higher. So if you see the C here, and I say go up 55 cents, we're actually past this line and therefore in the realm of, D flat or C sharp. If we're in D and I say go up 60 cents, we're actually in the realm of E flat. So 50 cents is the give or take you have in each direction of any 12-tone equal temperament semitone. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. You can go 50 cents in each direction, and then you're in the next note. If a note is more than 25 cents flat or sharp, then it is a note that is exotic to Western ears that are trained to the uniformity of 12-tone equal temperament. And this exotic note is close to a quarter tone, but not quite a quarter tone. The minor sixth, or the 25th harmonic, is 28 cents flat. So listen to this. It's this A flat. It's so much flatter than 28 cents flat. So it's a pretty exotic note, but it's not quite up to a quarter tone, which would be 50 cents. If a note is between 13 and 25 cents out of tune, it is neither in tune with 12-tone equal temperament, nor is it close enough to call it a quarter tone. It could best be described as a semi-exotic note. Again, these are but very general guidelines to set a basic standard for interpreting the degree of sense deviation. It should be understood that the more well-trained an ear is, the more sensitive it is to these tuning discrepancies. I do want to make a recommendation. ENTONAL Studio and Tonal Studio allows you to tune your software synthesizers inside your DAW to microtones. So I am starting to endorse that product and going to start making music with that. So I don't have anything yet, but very happy to be using that software, and I really recommend that you should pick it up so you can start experimenting with some of these notes. I hate having to advertise to you, so let me make this quick. I could really use your help to grow this channel. Between my full-time job as an ER nurse and being a husband and father of 2 kids, it is very hard for me to find the time to make content for this channel. Many of my videos take 10 or 20 hours to create. For those of you who are really getting a lot out of my lessons, here is how you can help me out. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that the notification bell is set to all notifications for my channel. I think only 10% of you have that clicked now. You can watch more of my videos by browsing through the playlist section of my channel to find the videos that most interest you. But the very best way you can help me is to subscribe to my Patreon music school called High Castle Conservatory. YouTube pays me about 1 cent per view, but on Patreon you can decide to give me $3.50 a month or $7 or $15 or more, whatever you feel you're getting out of my lessons. The more support that I get on Patreon, the more time I have to devote to making unique music education content for you. At this point, I have not abbreviated my videos here on YouTube or put my full videos behind a paywall, and by joining my Patreon, you help me in the most direct way possible. If you have found yourself really enjoying my lessons, then please come join High Castle Conservatory on Patreon. Lastly, please consider buying my original music projects I.S.S. and High Castle Tele Orchestra on Bandcamp. You can find the details and links in the description below. Now let's get back to that lesson.